We're not here to make up the numbers, we're here to compete as well. This squad, with the power they have on their day, they can do anything they want.
Hello, welcome to the Glassgirls Network with me, Jonathan. I'm joined today by a special guest, reserve team manager, Tom. How are you doing, mate?
I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. We just finished watching our women's senior team win 10-1, which was a great result. And I think I'd like to start on that, actually. The fact that the reserve team didn't have a game today, but all the players come down, yourself came down. Yeah. There's great team spirit today at the ground.
Yeah, it's key, to be fair. For me, that's one of the nice bits about it, to be fair. Andy wants us to come down, we feel welcome. And to be fair, the support there, you can see the connection between the two teams. It is one out, one way in it.
Yeah.
So for me, whenever we don't have that or we don't have training, it just makes sense because with that connected anyway, you want to be a part of it, and it's good that we've got players that come down and do want to be a part of that from 18s onwards, to be fair.
I think what excites me is, you come down and you help create the atmosphere as well, because obviously your reserve players are quite vocal and they'll cheer on the sidelines. But also, do you think some of the players might be studying some of the senior team, because they look up to the likes of Neve and Mill and some of these big players? Do you think they actually study the game a little bit as well, or is it just the enjoyment as well?
I think it's largely that. I mean, it's hard not to be fair, when you've got people kind of in your position. I mean, you've got people like Nudezi, Mill Rogers up top, through the middle. You've got Alex, you've got Lammy, you've got so many names, and that's just a few. Yeah. That it's natural for us, I think, to just look at, I want to be, because the idea of us is we want to be there. Yeah. And we're seeing players that are doing that week in, week out, and getting the results they're doing. I think it's inevitable, to be fair. You're looking at them thinking, wow, I want to be a part of that, and I want to see what I can do to be a part of that. I think a bit closer. Yeah. So definitely, I think there's a few watching just to see what they can do, maybe a few little tricks up the sleeves as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's nice for them.
That's good. And it looked like they all enjoyed themselves as well. And we saw the under-14s. I think there was some younger players in the youth team as well that was here today as well, which is great. And we'll do future podcasts about how all the teams in the Stourbridge are linked. But we'll talk about that, in a separate podcast. Just a little bit about yourself then, Tom. So obviously last year I met you as part of the under-18s. I think the first time I actually properly spoke to you was under-18s against Kelsey away. With Sav, talk to me a little bit about your journey then, mate, in Stourbridge.
Yeah, of course. So I joined probably about three years ago, 4 seasons back. First joined, I think first we were in the West Mids Div 1 South, I think it was. First joined assistant coach to Mike, saw the opportunity. I've always been kind of looking to get into women's football. Just previous before that, was just coaching bits and pieces, but it's something I really felt passionate about. Came to Stour, and for that year, absolutely learned so much under Mike with his coaching and stuff like that. And it was a great season for us, obviously getting promoted. Yeah. I think did we get promoted that year? I can't remember, to be fair. Can never when COVID hit. COVID's a different time. But essentially, we're there or thereabouts anyway, getting there. And then the year after, Andy said that we were producing the development team. Yeah. So joined that as a coach. The original manager was El Goff, so I was their lead coach for last season. So that was in County Div 1, and that was fantastic. To be fair, first kind of proper taste of lead coaching within a structure anyway. Okay. And then COVID hit. I think we were top at the time. They kind of called it. And then last year started managing the Devs, as we were called then, in the Birmingham County Prem, and then took a bit on the 18s as well, coaching, to be fair. So I've kind of seen, as we talk about that pathway, I've kind of had little glimpses into all those different elements, to be fair. And I mean, I've stuck around. There's something special about just that pathway and what we're trying to create. So it's an honour to be kind of managing that kind of path, that kind of stepping stone in that. Yeah, it's really big.
Especially being in the National League now. We'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But you mentioned under-18s. Just have to shout out one player who actually made that jump last season from what I saw from the under-18 straight to the senior team, and that was Kira Scarlett. Obviously just turned 18. How has it been for you, obviously, to be a part of the club and to see her development?
It's a massive privilege to be able to see the progression of a player from watching the 18s, because I remember a few games of Kira with the 18s. Kelsey is one that we spoke about, but as well at Cov City, and you can see glimpses of a player that's kind of doing more than enough at 18s. You look at yourselves as reserve manager and actually think, to be fair, it's a horrible decision, but you're thinking, I don't think I'm going to have her for too much longer, to be honest with you. Yeah. Because she can naturally do things with the first team. She's not at that level.
Stands out.
Yeah, massively, and it's nice to see that as well. When you're looking at bits and pieces where how can I help this player? Because I think last year as well, Kira had quite a few opportunities with first team. And so at that point, you're just thinking, what your role as manager and kind of coaching is, what can I do to help you? Because you've got that ability, and I think it's for that next step. And to be fair, that's what the reserve team's all about.
Well, let's get into that now, because we kind of jumped a little bit ahead, but let's talk about that, because your expectations and your role is not just a case of getting results and finishing top of the league. For you, it's building a pathway from getting players ready from the old-fashioned development squad, the under-18s, to get them into the reserves, and then into the first team if they're needed. Is that what you were kind of saying, like building the players from the reserve team into the,
it's kind of a twofold. Yeah, to be fair, it's the first bit is you've got to remember some of the 18s that were calling up, especially last year, that's their first taste of adult football as well.
Yeah.
So it's introducing them to that, and also managing not just their expectations but also what they can do as well, and then looking to see actually what, as I said, what can we do to help them fit what Fish wants, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's the bits. I think we had about 5 or 6 regular, I think in the back end of last year, 18s called up to ours. And it's not a case of obviously all of them will immediately make that jump, but it's, we had Zara come through, she's trained sometimes with the first team. We've had Isla again, same again. We've had quite a few players that you're trying to feed them this bit of experience, and sometimes that comes from training. But ultimately, you want them to follow up that pathway. I want them to be at some point to be like, actually, I'll be playing with the first team, and that for me is a bit of a nightmare that can be as a manager, finding one of your players that actually it's fantastic for that player and for that journey they've made. I'm trying to think of a few others. Like we had Ellie Allen, for example, who's come up to the Resis, and she's been with us, I think, since under 13s or something like that, and scored her first, I think, goal full stop within the system last year. And it's those stories, those people that come up and have that connection with the club, with the team, that you just want to kind of just embody as a team, to be fair, as the reserves, and just do what you can for them. And as much as you want to get the results, you've got to remember these are kind of like the kids that have come through COVID for some of the younger ones, kind of like getting through that. And naturally, they just want to come into a place where they know they'll enjoy, they'll know they'll develop. And results, I won't say they won't matter, but for them, the main thing is what can I do to progress myself? And that for me is the wonderful thing, as I say, about where we are. We try and help them as much as they can, and sometimes that means they'll leave us, but the main thing is they're in a better place, in a better position than when they arrived, either through 18s or elsewhere. And it's the same, to be fair, the other way. I'll mention one bit in kind of how it sometimes works when Fish thinks some player might be struggling a little bit or they don't quite fit his plans immediately. We've got to look out for them and see how we can help them develop as well, and that's sometimes a challenge as well. Going back to last year, the main one, Neve Murphy, I think she played 2 or 3 games for us last season. But again, since then, like after the support and all kind of like reporting back to Mandy to see what she does, integral, I think, to the squad that they've got this year. So it is that pathway upwards, but actually it's helping them as well. And that can be hard as a challenges, but I think again you can see when you see Neve Murphy putting like goals in the back of the net for the first team, it's an incredible feeling as a manager, massively so.
I mean, you mentioned 2 names there, Isla McNally and Neve Murphy, both won, I believe, the One Heart One Way award last season.
Yes.
No coincidence there that you just suddenly dropped them names out, and it's not just about your on the pitch, it's about your attitude as well. And both those players, who quite well, have got that as well. I'm a Man United fan, and last season, Man United Women's Academy team, or whatever it's called these days, they won the Academy Cup or whatever it was called. I can't remember the name. I actually went to the final. They won Birmingham City in the final. They had a very strong team, but now a lot of those players have gone away on loan and gone away to maybe a different team. Some of them might have stepped up to the senior team. So you've actually lost a lot of good players in that reserve team. Do you find that, like, maybe, do you ever get frustrated that, like, okay, you've built a team and you've got them playing finally the way that you wanted to play, but now obviously they've got to move on, or do you kind of see that coming at some point?
I'm learning to.
Yeah.
I think that's the bit. You kind of, when you go into manager, you think you can build your team, and actually,
Yeah.
and it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
You can't. You've kind of got to have constantly changing plans. And I wouldn't say it's hard as manager. Sometimes it's an absolute blessing. You've got players coming up that are absolutely, even this year, our ratings are pushing, I think.
Yeah.
And it can be an absolute blessing because you've already got a solution in house, and that's beautiful to have. You don't have to look elsewhere. I'd just say it's quite hard as a manager because I can go through names that we've moved on or have moved on anyway. Throughout kind of like Amy Sargent's, Shan Roche, we had throughout the first 2 seasons with us. Meg Harrison, like Becca Linney. Like there's people that you build connections with, but also represent the club and have done for 2 years.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that they don't fit quite in that cycle, kind of that with that movement. And I'd say it's just hard because as a manager, you naturally want to build that connection, you want to build that bond with your team.
Yeah.
And it's those little bits where actually sometimes you're out of control. Sometimes you've got to kind of like push the pathway. Sometimes you've just got to just find different things out. And it's just learning to manage that. And I suppose the bit with that is also the players also, because they're aware of that reality as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just being aware of that, being proud of what you're representing, and just doing your best to be able to communicate. I think the honesty and the openness about that as much as you can be, is something that it's not a conversation I never enjoy. But it's just the way, it's just the pathway, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But as you say, the flip side of that is this club has built fantastic work in its academy, in the girls section, like with Cal Terry and GTHAC as well, with our under 14s, like doing bits. You've got that there, and it's actually it's a great resource to have. And so in that respect, you are blessed. It's just there's positive and minuses, to be fair.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah.
Just one last question about like the link between like stepping up from the reserve team to the senior team. Do you play a similar kind of formation, and is your training pattern kind of the same? I was wondering, like for example, if Andy Fisher says to you, right, I need someone who can play on the right wing now. Tom, who you got? I don't know if that's even a question that gets asked. But like, is someone able to step straight into that kind of role, or do they need to be kind of nurtured first, or how do you kind of get someone into that kind of level?
That's a good question. I suppose it's a bit twofold. It's 9 out of 10 times me and Andy will probably have conversations about a player every week about players. Okay. And so we kind of know roughly where they are in line with what Fish wants and what they need to do.
Yeah.
And I suppose the main bit is just probably Fish will, from those conversations, Fish will have a player in mind who he thinks might be able to fill that role. He's got his ideas, obviously we train together. So he's seen them. And sometimes it's just me literally saying, yeah, this person's been confident, they've been absolutely ready, their head's screwed on, they're ready for that challenge.
Yeah.
And that's the way it goes. Sometimes it might be, well, actually this player's been doing it instead.
Yeah.
But it's between me and Andy, there's constantly that kind of, he knows who's on my radar, I know who's on his radar. And as long as we kind of have that, usually those discussions are quite easy, to be fair. We know who we need to push.
Yeah. We
know who we kind of are looking to kind of support a bit more maybe, or kind of just support a little bit, kind of to just bridge that gap a bit. I mean, the key one is Ruby Meeson, for example, coming down towards this season, and then for example, this Wednesday, stepping in, but that's largely because the amount of support she's had, and also just her own effort, to be fair, to break into that again. Yeah. So yeah, it's twofold, I'd say.
She had a great week as well, scoring 2 goals last week, and then obviously getting called up against Wem and playing really well against Wem as well. So yeah, great shout out.
That's the bit though. That's the key bit. And what we want to try and do is that we want as many to be able to do that. Yeah. And that's the bit. Is just that if Fish does need someone, we've got someone, and that's just try and get them to that level.
Yeah. Good stuff. So let's move on to a little bit about your captain. So obviously you're the manager. The next one there is the captain. Jodie Perkins obviously been out all season so far. You know, I was there in Wales where she had that injury and she's not returned just yet. One, what do you think Jodie Perkins has brought to Stourbridge, because she's been here for a very long time, and two, who's her replacement this season?
Yeah, I think honestly after the accident, I say the incident, Aberystwyth, it's a hard one because you literally set up your season. Jodie's been with me for the last 3 seasons. Okay. I've been with Devs, and she's integral to the club, to the players. Everyone gets well with her. She's one of those faces who's literally stout through and through. Yeah. For me, someone I trust resolutely. To be fair, she'll say what needs to be said, and we can have that discussion. So kind of losing that was hard, to be fair, because for the players as well, more than just me. Everyone looks up to Jodie, and you kind of think, it's not one of those conversations. One of them are just like, I've got that gap there immediately.
Yeah.
So after that, it's kind of you're thinking about what do we do, what's next, and this year we've called up to in that gap. We've got Lou Butcher as our captain. Lou came down from first last season to come be with us this year. But I think the main bit from that is it's not just the fact she's a first teamer in that sense of kind of she's got that seniority with all our players.
Yeah.
But it's more that personality for me. It's someone who's looking to drive a bit of consensus. Someone I can, will say things to me, that will have discussions with me. But also it's a player that I think anyway, others on the team look up to in a similar sort of mould.
Yeah.
And although it's not quite the same, I think it's probably Lou's. I don't know if it is Lou's first kind of captaincy role, but again, that's not something she had with the first team. And for me, that's something I thought I could maybe potentially bring out from her, to be fair, as well, with that captaincy, having that responsibility.
How did you feel when you got kind of offered that role? No, did you call her into the room? Well, not into the room, but how did that conversation go where you pulled her over and said, look, do you fancy being the captain this season while Jodie was out?
To be fair, so it kind of, after Jodie kind of had the injury, it was kind of for a few weeks of training, just thinking about what kind of replaces that. And to be fair, it was quite, not an obvious one, but it was probably one of the ones where you see a personality, you think, actually, she's got a bit of command, she's got respect.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the natural choice. And the first thing I did, to be fair, was just speak to Jodie about the situation, because for me, I can't just go to say, look, kind of like done with it.
Yeah.
And kind of not to get an opinion, but kind of just to say this is the situation. So the first phone call was Jodie to let her know that my idea was with Lou. And then after that, just called her in and just said, look, I really appreciate your attitude, your mindset, and since you've come here, I think it'll really push you. And having those conversations, and I think to be fair, you've got the respect. And I think it's one, maybe kind of just like a bit trepid, kind of like from Lou, kind of just thinking, I don't know, like, can I do it? Is it something I've done before? Because I say she's not done it, I don't think, much in the first team last year. But I think it's something you hand that confidence over as manager. That captaincy does that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that my other players aren't leaders on the pitch or elsewhere.
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of those things. You've come down. It's hard as a player coming down. You're not sure whether it's the right decision. But that little thing for her might be the one thing where actually I can develop. I can push myself. This is the way I can challenge myself. And I think since then she steps in fantastic. I think she does command the respect exactly as I want. And kind of as that personality to bridge that since Jodie's had her injury. I think she's done really well. I think she has stepped into that really positive, and I think it's really positively benefited the team.
It's great to hear, and she's not always the most loudest person in the room, but you don't need to be, do you? You don't need to be, if she's got that respect of the team and people look up to her, then it's the right thing to do, and she's got the right attitude, and that's great to see. When I heard that it was Lou that was taking it, I was like, yeah, makes absolute sense. She's the right kind of person, isn't she? So yeah, great stuff there. And how's Jodie been? What's her recovery like? What's she been like? She still comes to the club, she still comes to the games, even though she's not playing. How's Jodie's recovery going?
So within the team, kind of very much big part of it. I think again, everyone still respects her, everyone's still got that opinion of her. So she's in and around as much as she can be, to be fair, alongside the recovery that she's got to do, kind of getting to grips with everything she needs to do. Hopefully looking towards the back end of the season, but then you have rehab and everything like that, but hopefully looking towards that. The main thing is just getting those scans and kind of like the work that she needs to do. So hopefully she will be with us towards the back end, and hopefully she can experience a bit of National League football, because I think it would definitely, her presence is definitely missed, but when she's down here, it's one of those where she's not
she's got so much respect.
Yeah, exactly, but she's never away for too long. That's the thing, she's not away from it completely. It's not as if we've just torn it, she's there. It's just on that pitch, it's just where she's no longer there, that's the thing.
And it must be a good feeling for her when she does walk into the club like she has done today, game day. She's walking in, she's not playing, she's not playing, everyone knows that she's not playing, but as soon as she walks past the fans are there, singing the songs. Anthony was there today, and he's obviously singing the song, and it must make her feel welcome that she's still, even though she's not playing, she's still a massive part, and that's good to see, and hopefully she gets back soon. You mentioned the National League. So obviously, since we've been in the National League, we're not the Devs anymore, we're the reserves. Just kind of give us a little brief idea of what the little difference is there between being the development team to now being the reserve team.
It's a very interesting one. To be fair, there's not much. It's more the focus on, I suppose, the standards, I suppose, and kind of it's our mindset, I suppose, rather than necessarily. I think the aim for the team, for the club, is very much similar. Main thing, pathway. 18's pushing up into our team, and as much as we can, pushing our players into the firsts. For me as a coach, and from what I'm trying to transmit to the coaching staff, is it's very much that mindset, and kind of that's kind of got to be a goal in this team to an extent. We want players that want to push themselves to be able to progress in this team. And the reserve bit is the fact that we can have first team players down, but it is that we want to create that pathway. And for that, we've got to have high standards, especially when you're playing against Wolves, your derbies, West Brom, especially when you've got them the first 5 fixtures of the season.
Mental.
Yeah, it's one of them. But that's the thing, it's the standard. It might be a very small thing in kind of what we're actually aiming to do, but actually mentally for the players and for us as coaching staff, it's a big thing. And actually, that's the goal now. We're playing these sides now. There's got to be a little switch that kind of changes, kind of turns on, and actually that it's Wolves now. And then next week, actually, we'll go through Sunday, Stoke and West Brom, pretty much week after week. So you've got, that changes things a little bit. So you've got to be prepared. You've got to kind of have everything to hand. You've got to be open to changing things if you need to. And as well as that, you've got to be just there supporting, I suppose, that pathway a bit more as well. A bit more. You've got to be integrated with it, because, you know, if something happens, say, in the first team, if a few players get injured, you've got to be prepared to step up now against in Tier 4, whereas previously we were just in county. It's a big gap. So mentally, I think it's more the change necessarily than actually what we're aiming to achieve. The main thing for me is if we play well, we perform as well as we have, and we've trained well, hopefully we'll see some results this year, and that's the goal. But actually then, if we do all that as well, then players should progress.
You kind of just answered this question by what you kind of just said, but I do just want to kind of, of course, the time as well, because we've only got a few minutes left before we move on. But like, you mentioned all them teams there, Wolves, Albion, Stoke, other teams there as well that you've got to play against. The top quality teams is finding that blend between developing the players but also getting decent results. Not fantastic results, we're not expecting miracles. How do you find that pressure, like getting that blend?
It's hard because you never know kind of where you're standing, to be honest with you. I mean, our results so far in the league, 2 games, 2 losses. I mean, that's against Derby, who very good outfit, very well to be coached, you can see. Same with Wolves, to be fair. So you don't actually know, but you've got, I think, to be fair, you've got to look at performances. You've got to believe the performances will give you the results. The main thing for me after Derby, we kind of grew into it in the first game. Second half, we were much better performing, and actually, if we did that throughout the season, we'd do all right and we'd progress. And then Wolves, to be fair, I think you saw the impact of that. We had to step up, and actually, we didn't get the result, but actually, performance-wise, probably one of the best that I've seen us play for a long, long time. I think others feel that, and I think the players feel that. For me, as a coach, you've got, I can't remember, it's John Wharton, I think it is. He's a college coach, football. He does basketball. College basketball. Look back in, and he says he tries to get his players to strive for competitive greatness, and it's not necessarily you having to be number 1 all the time, but it's to be the best when you're best needed. And I think for me, that's kind of it's whether you're playing a Wolves or, for example, if you've been called up into the first team and you're playing, I don't know, Longy and Donny Bells, someone like that, or when. What we've got to prepare you to is to be able to do that. For us, if it's in our games, we'll get the results, hopefully. But the main thing is, am I pushing my players to do that? And if they are, then hopefully it should all fall in line.
That's fantastic, Tom. I am cautious of time, so just one last question. I'll give you 30 seconds. If there's one player you can just shout out for, maybe someone who we can look at in maybe the senior team by the end of the season or start of next season, who would you like to kind of shout out?
That's a killer.
It is a killer. I'll put you on the spot here. I'm not going to say anything. I know who I would probably mention because we've seen him in a couple of games. But
who do I think can push? The one I want to see, and I think the goal is for she's got to push it. Honestly, Chelsea Hassel.
Oh, okay. 2 banging goals last week.
I think there's more to her game, and I think that will offer something. I think that's the challenge this year of unlocking her to get to that point. I think
that's nice to hear. It's nice to hear these names because, like,
there are others, guys.
I know there are. Seriously, that wasn't the one that I was going to say. It's not the ones that, like, plenty of fans will say that. But it's nice to hear that because she's always at the club. She's definitely part of the team away from the pitch as well. You know, I'm at the club more than most of the players. You know, having a casual drink after work, and she's one of the players that's here. and scored 2 fantastic goals last week, and you know she's all on. Well, we retweeted it as we do as fans. So it's great that you mentioned that name. So definitely look out for her. Thank you very much, Tom, for joining us. We've got to have one last point before we go home.
Yeah,
get ready for work tomorrow. But no, thank you very much, Tom. Really enjoy that, and hopefully you guys at home can take something away from this and look out for our reserves team. So thank you very, very much, and we shall see you again soon.
Cheers, John.